So, Liam, this story could sound sort of counterintuitive to most people. Surely a cap is meant to keep prices lower?
A cap is meant to keep prices lower, but the problem is the cap has become a kind of state-mandated price control. So almost all deals now are at the level of the cap or just slightly below the level of the cap. And switching has collapsed from roughly 500,000 households switching every month to less than 100,000 households switching every month since this cap was introduced. And the reason we care about what the CPS says is that the CPS, the senior people there, have traditionally tended to write the Tory manifesto or help to write the Tory manifesto. So they're unlikely to say things that are going to get a complete raspberry in government, if you like, that are going to be completely rejected by ministers. So let's have a look at what the CPS are actually saying and think a little bit more about this energy price cap. As I've written here, it was introduced in 2017 as a, quotes, temporary measure, just like income tax was introduced as a temporary measure during the Napoleonic Wars. And it sets a maximum price for each household per energy unit. So if you use more energy, you still pay more, but it sets the kind of average unit cost, the average bill at a certain unit cost. It puts the cap on the unit cost. It's reviewed every 3 months, and the annual household limit is currently £2,074. So if you use the average amount of energy of an average household, then the unit cost that they've capped, it will charge you, it will cost you just over £2,000. That's per year. The cap is now under scrutiny. Why is that? Because most deals are at or just below the cap. So it seems as if there's no competition. And what the CPS have said is that in practice, the cap has become a kind of state-mandated price, like a kind of price control. Competition has all but disappeared, says the CPS, and they refer to that lack of switching that I mentioned. And then they say providers are not offering better value deals as wholesale prices come down. So the cap kind of has like a magnetic force. It keeps bills too high, even when wholesale prices suggest they should be lower than the cap.
So what does this mean then, in layman's terms, for Mary in Leicester, who's paying £200 a month for her gas and electricity?
Well, as I've just been explaining, the cap probably...
If there's no cap, is it going to be cheaper for her?
Well, it depends where the wholesale prices are. That's the whole point.
The cap just makes it stickier, so that all the prices stick to the cap rather than moving about more.
Let's say, Pip, that the wholesale price comes down sharply and the cap is still there and the cap isn't being reviewed for another 3 months. Then providers, they'll deny this, but they'll collude without actually talking to each other about collusion, because that would be illegal, and they'll all stick around the cap, even though the wholesale price may have come down, that suggests bills should be a lot lower than the cap. Now, we're going to see a new cap is going to come out in the middle of August the 25th, and we'll see where that is. And based on current wholesale prices, Mary and Leicester should be reassured that the cap will probably go down from just over 2,000 to around £1,700 or £1,800 a year. So a sizable decrease. But I agree with Rob Colville, who runs the Centre for Policy Studies. I've talked to him about this. The cap acts as kind of like a magnet. It keeps prices too high when wholesale prices have dropped, and that's the problem. And we have seen much, much lower wholesale prices here in the UK. For gas. We've been getting LNG gas from America. We haven't been using Russian gas as much as we were, though some of it gets in round the edges. And yet our energy bills are still much, much higher. I was talking to you guys about this last week. Our energy bills in the UK, there's a unit called cent euro per kilowatt hour, right? And ours are at 45, and in Germany they're at about 35, and in France they're at about 25, and in Spain they're at about 20, and in America they're at 18.
Wow.
Right? So we are really paying a lot for our energy, and a lot of people think, something I've written about, the fact that the CPS is highlighting it like this on a quiet news day. This is an important move from probably the most influential think tank in the country when it comes to Tory policy. Okay. And what they're saying is we should scrap the cap so households can benefit more from lower wholesale prices. Okay. And we'll see if this flies in government.